It's one thing to be a monk in a cave and achieve enlightenment that way, but if you can keep yourself balanced, in the flow, harmonious, connected with your spiritual path while living a busy life on planet Earth in, the year 2021, then you are a modern master, right? And to me, that's what it's really about. Hey, what's up guys? I'm Jonathan White. I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so you can manifest your ideal life. If you want to learn more about sexual mastery, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to stay notified when I release new videos. Make sure you get my free energy upgrade training through the link in the video description below. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about my own experience in training in the internal energy practices, internal energy cultivation, which goes much beyond just the sexual kung fu practices, just the sexual practices. Really, this is just a small percentage of my overall training and my personal daily practice, right? So it really began over a decade ago. So in 2010, I had recently had a Kundalini experience. And in this experience, I connected to higher dimensions. I understood that there was much, much more to this world than we've been taught in history books, much more to the reality than we're able to decipher through our limited human senses. And I've talked more about this experience in other videos, but this experience really led me to study the Eastern practices of internal energy cultivation and really any esoteric practice that would help me to connect with my life force, boost my energy, and boost my sense of spiritual connection as well. And really the first practice I did was a Merkaba meditation practice, which I learned from Drun Velo Melchizedek's book, Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. And this is a practice basically where you activate this star tetrahedral energy field around the body by breathing in a certain way, using certain visualizations. And once I first did this practice, my life changed significantly. It's difficult to say exactly why or if it was, a placebo effect or really from the practice, but the entire course of my life took a bit of a different direction from this point on. And I was learning how to meditate. I was learning how to kind of still my mind, focus on the breath. And I was very, kindergarten level in my practice, but I was at least on the path at this point when I was, about 21 years old. And I was starting to get somewhere, right? I was starting to pursue this path, right? But I had a long ways to go. And a couple years later, I got into yoga practice because I was a full-time musician at the time. I was a very serious, guitarist at the time. I was practicing for hours a day. I was starting to have some shoulder problems. And one of my favorite musicians at the time, Michael Hedges, he talked about yoga and meditation, how he used the energy he generated in this practice to heal his own body from certain issues he was having. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try this. And I started practicing yoga and I got a lot of benefits from it, of course. But after a few years of yoga practice, it was like, okay, it feels good. I'm stretching my body. I feel more present. I feel more meditative, but I'm not really experiencing, that there's all this talk about chakras and the Kundalini rising from yoga practice. I'm like, I'm not really experiencing that. Like, where is the chi? Where's the energy, right? Where's the tangible energy experience? In some way, I heard about Kundalini yoga. I heard that this was a more kind of esoteric style of yoga that is much more geared towards energy cultivation, spiritual awakening. So I began practicing Kundalini yoga. There was fortunately some classes where I lived at the time, and this was a very powerful transformational practice for me. Kundalini yoga is very powerful. It's very forceful. It involves intense, rapid breathing and doing these, certain Kriya movements. You may be doing a movement like this for like 10, 20 minutes at a time. So it's very intense. But over time, this began to be a bit imbalancing for me. I tend to be a very spacey person by nature. It's easy for me to get ungrounded and kind of disconnected from my body. And I found that my Kundalini yoga practice was only fueling this sort of imbalance within myself, because there's all this emphasis on bringing the energy up the spine, open the crown, shoot it up into outer space, right? It's pretty much the focus of Kundalini yoga. And I found that this was causing some imbalances in my body. I was having very strange experiences where I felt like I was about to shoot out of my body, and it would put me in these states of anxiety. It felt like my whole world was collapsing at some points. The last Kundalini yoga class I went to, it was a particularly intense class, and the last Kriya we were doing, after several minutes of intense breathing, took a deep breath, hold it, did the bandhas, did the locks, and I left my body. I remember all of a sudden just kind of floating up in this ethereal feeling realm. It was a very dreamlike state, and it was a very strange feeling. And then the next thing I knew, I was laying on the ground, and the teacher was rushing over to me to make sure I was okay, right? Because I had passed out. And at this point, I was like, okay, maybe this is not the most balanced practice for me. And it was at this point that I started exploring Qigong practice and Taoism. I had heard about Qigong, I'd heard about, Taoist practices, and I'd actually tried it. The first time I tried Qigong, I found a YouTube video, started practicing along with it. And I remember feeling very, very peaceful, very calm and energized after the practice. But it was like my brain, my rational mind had a hard time with it. I'm like, how does moving in slow motion cause significant benefits? Like, I just don't get it, right? And so I had this block around it and I just didn't do it, right? I was more interested in my yoga practice. But at this point, finding that Kundalini yoga was really causing more imbalances within myself and not necessarily cultivating more usable energy for me, I dedicated myself to trying out Qigong practice. I read a book by Lam Kam Chuen called Qigong, The Way of Energy. It's a book about Xingyiquan practice, which is a standing meditation. It's really a foundational Qigong practice. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this every day for like a month or something like that and just see what happens. So I did it every day. I spent about 10 to 15 minutes. In this Qigong practice, you hold these postures and just relax. Connect with the breath, sink your energy, and you sink your attention into the earth, and just allow the earth's energy to fill the body. And within a few days, I was noticing significant, very beneficial changes in my body. I found, wow, I have much more energy. I feel much more grounded. I feel much more just in the flow. I'm enjoying my life. I'm enjoying being here in the physical plane on earth. I feel more confident. Something is happening that's very beneficial from this Qigong practice, so I'm going to keep going. So this was in 2014, right? And I spent about the next 2 years kind of deepening my Qigong practice as I could. Unfortunately, where I lived in Idaho, there just wasn't anyone really teaching Qigong, not many Qigong teachers in the area. So my only resources at the time were YouTube videos and books, but I made it work. I was practicing from video trainings, from books, and I was getting some good results, right? But eventually I felt like I was hitting a brick wall. I'm like, okay, I just feel like I'm not quite feeling the energy. Something's missing. And I was like, I really need to find a teacher. And I'd been really interested, especially in the works of Mantak Chia, who wrote, Multi-Orgasmic Man, which got me into sexual kung fu, but he also has many books on Qigong, on Taoist meditation, the Microcosmic Orbit. So I was using Mantak Chia's practices, having some really good results. And this is how I discovered Michael Wynn, who was basically Mantak Chia's ghostwriter for his first 7 books. And I found that Michael Wynn was teaching retreats in the US, in North Carolina. So I knew about these retreats for a couple years, but just kept telling myself, oh, I don't have the money, I can't do this trip. But finally in 2016, I made a decision. I was having a bit of a personal crisis. I had a difficult breakup with a partner at the time and was like, okay, I'm going nowhere in my life. I need to make a change. So I made it happen. I went to North Carolina and went to a Michael Wynn summer retreat, and it changed my life. It completely changed my life. It amplified my practice. One thing that Michael said that really stuck with me was that Qigong is the language of nature. And what you're learning to do with Qigong practice is to communicate with the subtle energy field, learning to clear these old patterns from the body, to bring in fresh chi, to energize the body. I learned how to release negative emotions from my body. I learned how to activate my microcosmic orbit. And of course, I also studied his healing love practices, how to circulate sexual energy through the body, how to really separate orgasm from ejaculation, use this sexual energy to heal yourself. So I came back from this retreat, I was a different person. I was obsessed with Qigong practices. I immediately started practicing for about 3 hours a day. It was all I cared about. At the time, I was working as a cook in a restaurant. I had to get up about 5:30 in the morning, so I didn't really have time to do practice in the morning. But as soon as I got home from work, I would jump on my bike, I would go to the park, and I would do hours of Qigong practice. And I loved it. That was my life for several months. I was just working and practicing Qigong, developing my Qi. And I was feeling massive benefits from these. It was mostly medical Qigong. And medical Qigong basically just works with your basic levels of Qi to make sure everything's balanced, harmonious, everything's flowing freely in the body so that you are healthy. When you're healthy, you feel happy, you feel energized, you feel in the flow, right? So that was my main practice for a while. And I eventually became a certified healing Tao instructor, studying under Michael Wynn and other healing Tao teachers at the time I was studying with. But after about 2.5 years after that retreat, once again, I felt like I was kind of hitting a brick wall. And I had been through almost all of Michael Wynn's system, some of the higher level practices, and I was still feeling a bit stuck in my practice. The main issue I was having was like, I'm not really tangibly feeling the Qi that much, right? Like my hands would get tingly and lit up a bit, I'd feel a slight buzzing in the microcosmic orbit when I was doing that practice. But I was like, I hear about these teachers, I read these texts, these classic texts, and they talk about this, powerful Qi flow moving through the body and being able to influence reality with it and things like that. I'm like, that is not happening for my practice. And at this time, I kind of called out to the universe. I was like, please send me a teacher that will help me get to the next levels in my practice. And, interestingly, within a week, maybe 2 weeks, I was out in the park doing my Qigong practice as I did every day. And this guy comes up to me And he's like, oh, I see you're doing Qigong. He's like, can I show you some things? So he showed me how to root my body into the earth so that he could push on me without me being moved. He showed me a few subtle changes to the practice I made, which all of a sudden made the energy much more tangible. And so this guy was Jude, right? Who is now my Tai Chi teacher who I've been studying with since then in 2018, right? And so studying with Jude, I started really studying Tai Chi. He had a completely different approach to Qigong and energy cultivation that really complemented what I had already learned. And that really helped me break through the brick wall and reach a higher level in my practice. This was also when I discovered the work of Scott Meredith. As he describes himself, he's the Kurt Cobain of internal energy practices, meaning that, he has a very minimalistic, almost like punk rock approach to energy cultivation, like no bullshit, no, esoteric spiritual nonsense, just straight, how do you cultivate the energy? What's the technique? And do that, right? And what I really learned from studying Scott's work was that tension is the number one killer of the flow of chi in the body. So for example, it's one thing just to lift your arms up, and do a movement like, okay, I'm doing Qigong, right? I'm imagining the energy, I'm moving my arms slowly, but it's not quite that. This was the biggest revelation for me. It's a full body engagement. The classics talk about syncing the chi. It's like there's this process in the body that must occur to get the chi flowing. And Scott Meredith calls this the ARC process, which stands for ARC. Accumulate, rebound, and catch. The accumulation process, it's the sinking the chi that the classics talk about. And it's this deep release. You have to release all the tension from your body. And at first it sinks and accumulates in the lower dantian center, which is in the belly, right? And so that's the first step, right? And just that is a major accomplishment because so many people have these ingrained tension patterns that actually completely prevent them from establishing a tangible chi flow. And after the accumulation in the dantian, the rebound phase is you sink the energy further. You release it down the legs into the feet. And as it moves into the earth, it springs back up. The earth chi comes up, it fills the legs, fills the body. So it rebounds up through the body. And the pathway is that it fills the legs, it moves back up to the dantian, and it starts to move up the back, up the torso, and it splits at the lean tie point between the shoulder blades. Part of the flow goes through the arms and into the hands. The other part goes up through the head, through the Xingyiquan, the center of the brain, down the front of the body. So kind of this microcosmic orbit type pathway really is the macrocosmic orbit, including the arm channels. And then that flow further extends back into the arms and the hands. So this gave me more of a model to work with, which I started having really amazing results with. Eliminating tension from my practice and learning to really sink the chi, which I had been doing really for years in my Xingyiquan practice, standing meditation, but having this revelation of how important the release of the tension, the sinking of the chi is, helped me to really, really focus on that and get to much higher level of practice. And I also started, deepening my Tai Chi practice, studying with Jude and other teachers. I started to study Xingyiquan, which is another internal energy art, which is phenomenal, right? It's like on the outside, it looks like you're doing these punching type strikes. But you use zero tension to do this. And this is the mistake that probably 90% or more people practicing, well, really all internal arts, Tai Chi and Xingyi, make, is that they're using physical tension to drive these movements. But when you do that, the tension kills the flow of Qi. So Xingyiquan translates to mind, intent, fist. The mind intention fills the fist. So you're not filling your body or your fist with tension, you're filling it with your mind, which is complete relaxation and also absorbing your awareness into the body, Tingjin, right? This listening energy. And so at the same time, you focus on certain acupoints in the body, which are hot spots for energy generation. When you're making these movements, it causes this explosive movement of chi through the body. So after several months of practicing this much more internal approach to, Qigong, Tai Chi, energy cultivation, my practice was starting to blow me away in that I was feeling Chi like crazy. The first thing I experienced was my hands getting, lit up, like really, really lit up. And then that started to extend through my arms. My forearms started to feel like they'd been dipped in something radioactive and were glowing, radiating heat, buzzing. It's a crazy feeling. And that started to move up through my shoulders. I started to learn to activate my dantian, activate the legs. As my training has evolved, I started to experience the full body charge where the energy is flowing through the entire body. Again, it feels like this hydraulic fluid that's radioactive and vibrating intensely. It's a crazy feeling. It's actually very pleasurable. It's better than drugs. It puts you into an altered state, right? And once I experienced this, I'm like, yes, this is the chi. This is what people are talking about when they're talking about Qigong, And what I realized was that so many modern teachers have never experienced this. They've never actually experienced the tangible Qi flow. So it's all theoretical. It's like, well, this teacher said this, my teacher said this, so I'm just repeating what I learned because theoretically this is what happens. But actually few of, internal arts teachers these days really have that full body activation of chi where they're feeling it, because this stuff is pretty esoteric. It's been so kind of washed down over the years of its traveling to the US from China, right? And a lot of people just don't understand the concept of chi because they've never felt it. So they start to kind of put these other ideas on. Actually, what they're talking about is this physical tension. It's actually the movement of the fascia tissue. It's a physical practice. Internal means it's the internal tissues, but no, this is all about internal energy and the tangible flow of it and being able to express it. Being able to move your body in a way that generates chi is basically what, Qigong, Tai Chi, Xingyi, Bagua, it's really what the goal of all of them is, right? And at this point, I had studied a lot of Taoist alchemical practices, Neidan and Neigong practices, but my results I was having with them were limited, because a lot of the teachings of this are they can get very, very mental. It's like, okay, you visualize this and you visualize that, and it's like, okay, I'm visualizing this stuff and I'm having this kind of mental experience, but what's actually changed in my reality? Not much, right? Maybe have some shifts, but it's difficult to say if it was really from, these practices, right? And then I started studying a system, which I believe is the Longmen Pai lineage. I could be wrong about that, but it's a very, very grounded, very, very practical approach to Neigong. And this really, really strengthened my foundations in meditative types of practices. Because again, I had been doing all these practices, Microcosmic Orbit, testicle breathing, whatever, circulating chi throughout the body. I had that down. But what I learned was that I hadn't really built a lower dantian center. And this is the most important foundation of all, probably in all internal energy arts, Qigong, Neigong, whatever. You must have a dantian because it is the battery of the body. And if you don't have this battery filled with energy and you do your practice, it's like trying to drive a car without any gasoline, right? It's not going to get you very far. And that's what I realized I was experiencing in my practice for years, was like, I didn't have this core dantian battery in place. So my practice was very up and down. Sometimes I felt some chi, sometimes I felt nothing, right? So I started really focusing on this dantian work. Like literally for months, over a year, I did nothing but sinking into the dantian, settling my mind down there, holding my awareness in that area gently so that the chi, the jing starts to consolidate there. You build this magnetic field which starts to contain chi in it. And it's a very, very tangible process. I remember when I first felt my dantian, it was like this, again, that heating, bubbling feeling of electricity, something bubbling down there, right? It's a really amazing feeling, actually. And that's what really, really amplified my other practices as well, because I learned I could activate that dantian energy at any time and move it through my body with my Qigong practice, my Tai Chi, whatever. And this is what really unlocked the microcosmic orbit for me tangibly, was that I had this really strong container of chi in my body, in the dantian, and now I had something to really move through the microcosmic orbit to where it became very tangible. Again, like this liquid radioactive electrical movement through the orbit. So basically where I'm at now is that, I've studied many, many different systems. I've studied almost all the big names in internal energy arts and some other obscure systems as well. I've studied yoga systems, I've studied shamanic traditions, I've studied many, many different things. And by practice now, it's kind of a combination of different, lineages I've studied in. Really, I just take what actually worked for me, put it together, and that's what I'm practicing now, right? It's really like how Bruce Lee created Jet Kune Do. Is like he took all these different systems and took the best parts of them and put them into one system. That's kind of my philosophy, is I take what works, discard what doesn't work, and create my own practice for myself. So really, I don't, say like, oh, I'm of this lineage, or I'm a healing Tao instructor, or I'm, a Longmen Pai instructor, whatever. I'm really not any of those things. I've studied in them. You could say I hold lineages in some of these systems, but really, for me, it's really about bringing something new, something that is very appropriate for people in the modern world, something that works, because we can't really go sit in a cave for, a month now in our busy lives. We're in the world. We're in the mud of the third dimensional reality, right? It's like we have jobs, we have families. It's one thing to be a monk in a cave and achieve enlightenment that way, but if you can keep yourself balanced, in the flow, harmonious, connected with your spiritual path, while living a busy life on planet Earth in, the year 2021, then you are a modern master, right? And to me, that's what it's really about. And I'm continuing to train. I'm still studying with teachers. I'm still deepening my practices. I still have a long ways to go. I'm young. I have much to experience. I have much more training to do. but I'm very happy with what I have accomplished. You know, I love my daily practice. It's absolutely phenomenal. I feel the chi very powerfully. I'm able to get into very, very deep meditative states, you know, and practice certain alchemical processes that I feel happening in the body tangibly. I have very high levels of energy, more energy than I had, you know, when I was 18 years old. So I'm really happy with my training, what it has brought me. And really why I'm sharing this is because in my experience, there's no single system that's like the best. There's no single path that's going to work for everyone. It's really up to you to explore, to try different things and see what it does for you. If something works, keep it. If it's not working for you, discard it, right? That's my philosophy, and I encourage you to have the same philosophy as well. But things do not happen overnight. You know, the true internal energy arts, they take years to develop. It took me months and years to really develop my chi to high levels, right? And so don't let that discourage you, right? This isn't instant gratification. It's not like you do this practice once and, oh, that's it. You know, I've got the chi, I'm enlightened now. It does not work like that. You must train consistently over a period of time. It's a real kung fu. It's a gong, right? A skill that you develop over a period of consistent training. One thing I've learned is that the most powerful internal practices are often the most simple. Like I studied in some systems where it's like, okay, you have to hold all these mental images in your head of hundreds of different things, all these visualizations. I've found that those very mentally based practices often aren't as effective as much more simplistic practice, such as, for example, simply holding your awareness at a point in the body. Hold your awareness at your lower dantian in a relaxed way as you anchor your breath to that point. And after, you know, a period of consistent training, you'll start to really activate your dantian, same with other energy centers of the body. And also as a result of my own discoveries and my breakthroughs I've had in my own training, you know, and the efficiency of the practices which I've kind of accumulated through the years, I opened an online internal energy arts training school. It's called Immortal Energy Arts. So I'm teaching the best of the best what I've learned. It's an ongoing online school, which is based on a monthly membership. There's months worth of training material in there right now, and eventually there will be years worth of material as I'm consistently adding to it. So to find out more information about that, click on the link in the description of this video. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave a comment below. What has been your experience with internal energy training? I'd love to hear. Have a great day, my friends.